Welcome back, everybody, to Blackpool Podcast. I know it's been a minute. I know you guys missed us. Anyways, today we got SK as our guest, spelled ESQUE, not just S and K, which is actually a really fascinating name.
I think so.
I'm sure we'll go into it, but what he is, he's a very detailed illustrator. He's got, let me try this out. Oh. He's got this style, which has almost a traditional illustrator and Renaissance-y feel, but you do a really good job of keeping things really clean and somehow modern. How would you describe your style?
I think so. Most of how I draw is basically a sorry imitation of medieval woodcuts, Albrecht Dürer, or Gustave Doré, the guys who are literally carving images into wood or metal. Which is extremely labor intensive and surprisingly expensive in a modern world. So I just like that style so much that I decided I wanted to figure out how to do it with pens. And I've always been, I guess, pushing detail. So as long as, we find the patience and the time, just get as deep into detail as we possibly can.
You definitely do it. I mean, I didn't even think woodcut blocks, but I guess you're right. That is was that what they were doing back in the day?
Yeah. Well, not everybody, but
yeah. So I think it was funny. The first time I met you was at the show at, where was that at?
Up at High Watermark.
High Watermark. Yeah. And I saw your stuff and I recognized it from Instagram. Like, oh shit. And then I was like, I want to have you on the podcast. And then we started talking about just drawing and how you become this talented at drawing. And you're like, yeah, I hate it when people say oh, you're so talented because you're I've been working on this shit for years.
That's always that's the worst. Cause if someone pays you a compliment, you don't want to be shut the fuck up, So, but it's more so that to say what people always say is oh, I could never do that. I couldn't possibly do that. And it's you never really tried, did you?
Right.
And you say, oh, wow, that's amazing that you can just do that. It's no, I can't just do that. I practice every day.
Yeah, I think that was a pet peeve of mine too. When people that do the Olympics, this is so random. People do the Olympics and they're I just want to thank God, and you're like, dude, you worked pretty hard. I'm sure there's some people in your life that you can give a lot of credit to help claim to have gotten you to where you are right now.
Or somebody has a heart attack and his whole family, oh, thank God he's alive, and the doctor is dude.
Yeah, the surgeon who clamped his artery for 4 hours.
This was all me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's kind of weirdly dismissive. Of course nobody ever means it like that. They mean it with the best intentions. So all you do is say oh yeah, thanks, you can do it too. But
when did you first start getting into this? 'Cause I know your Instagram started in 2017.
Yeah.
You started I know this because I scrolled to the bottom.
Oh yeah, you found out.
Yeah. Which, by the way, you can see how much better you get, how much you've improved, and you're already good in the beginning. So the details that you have now are so much more detail oriented than they were in the beginning, but they're always good all around. So you started in 2017. Were you doing styles like this before that?
Not really. I was honestly super late to the game to get on Instagram. I've been drawing as long as I can remember, but kind of always thought Instagram was oh, I don't want to see a picture of your morning cup of coffee with a filter over it.
Oh
I totally dismissed it. And someone was finally there's a lot of art on Instagram, and that was the thing that got me interested in it. But I think, yeah, man, I don't know. I think I've just trended towards detail more than anything else. It's always been, I have composition notebooks that I started in middle school that have skulls drawn all over them. Mm-hmm. So the content has kind of stayed pretty consistent. And when I was in school, I went to, I didn't go to school for art, but I minored in it. So I got to take a bunch of studio classes, and they were always this is dope, but I want to see you not do a skull. That was the thing I always wanted to be doing.
Which is weird because usually they try to push stuff like skulls. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, from an academic sense of just here's a good, you want to understand anatomy and all those things.
Yeah.
Totally. I think that, in an arts education, you more so want to be really, really broad, and then you start to specify, and then you actually find your one thing. And maybe this is good, maybe this is bad, but I kind of already knew what my thing was.
And that was skulls?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. Did you do a traditional like drawing education
Yeah, like parts of one
where
basically.
you drew like a lot of naked people?
Yep, lots of studio time.
Dude, I remember the first time that I was drawing naked people. I didn't know that was what's gonna happen, and we're all sitting there expecting just a person to come up, clothed, and we heard a crash in the back. And we're like, and like the person that was naked like knocked something over, and then like we're like they're totally naked. I'm like, oh shit, it's a naked person, and I was like, oh, this is
He
it.
forgot his clothes.
That's the model. Yeah, I mean, it totally freaked us out for a second. We had no idea like what was really going on, but yeah, that was yeah.
That's
that
funny,
was the first
man.
experience of that, and then it was like naked people every day for years.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Well, it's the best practice. Like I think most people who draw from reference these days, like because you can Google whatever you want and find a picture of anything.
Yeah.
But there's something about like actually being in the same room as an object. You know, I just called people objects. That's not cool.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like an actual
you're
physical
subject.
thing.
You're subject. Yeah.
Instead of just like a two-dimensional recreation of it. That makes it a lot easier when if you're practicing things like volume and form and contour. Like it's a lot simpler and somehow easier to do it from 3D than from 2D. Like there's nuance that you miss if you're just like, I'm drawing this picture that I found on the internet. I mean, I do that all the time, but I put I did the work first to do all the drawing from references in real life.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I was talking to someone this week who said, yeah, I think about doing drawing classes. And in my head, I was just like, just draw every day. If you draw something every day, like you're going to get better.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, you can draw whatever you want with whatever you want. Like all drawing is applying a mark to a surface.
And it's how you practice. And you could be doing god awful things. Like I've been trying to do this super scribbly style of drawing lately. And I know like in the end, it's not going to really look good, but it's just like a different way to do it. And I think you can like gain something from trying something new in that way and changing the way your mind works. Instead of doing hatches, just do like just scribbles, like aggressive scribbles and like make it messy.
I think that, I mean, it's true. Like part of finding your voice and finding what you want to do is just like practicing and finding your own shit and not like just doing what everyone else is doing. But I think the value of an arts education, and I'm not also of this opinion that like you have to go to art school or anything like that. But what there is to be said for an arts education is that if you practice a lot and you have really bad habits, it's helpful to have somebody like call you on those.
That's very true.
Before they get like really cemented into you. Because drawing is like all habit.
Yeah.
And I mean, I developed bad habits and like I almost just crippled my hand a couple of months ago because I was like, I just like bend over and draw. And so I have to like tell myself like sit up and like draw over here.
Yeah, that's like a totally different kind of bad habit.
Yeah. But like if you're in like an art school or like an actual art class in a college or whatever, like they will be saying like sit up straight. You know, they do care about like posture and you know, it seems like stuffy and you're like, who really cares at the time? But there's a reason for that.
Yeah, like I got a sewing machine recently, and even they were saying it's best to put the foot pedal like on your left side because you'll be able to sew longer. And it's
interesting.
So, random. You're like that matters.
Yeah,
like
the ergonomics totally matter.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the end result. Like if you're drawing with bad posture, like it's going to be so much harder to pull a clean line, rather than like if you're doing it all.
Do you stroke out or in?
I almost always go out, and since it's like super, super rare to have like an actual straight line if you're drawing something that's natural, like a skull, everything's curved. So like you can think of me just like drawing different parts of different sizes of circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. Because if you go out, it's gonna go out.
And it's easier to draw a curve than it is like that's kind of a duh.
Yeah.
But it also just like looks more natural. Like there's no straight lines in nature.
There's also there's like no real, well, I guess there's some lines. I guess like the curvature of the earth is a line. Yeah, if you go like that.
But like unbroken lines are pretty rare.
Yeah. And the use of implied lines is always super valuable in drawings like this too. You've also been experimenting recently with you've been putting like graphite in it too, right?
It's ink wash.
Ink wash.
Yeah.
Is that something new for you?
That's like an old friend that I like haven't hit up in a while.
Hello, darkness.
I'm feeling like I need a lot more black ink. Yeah, that's something I did a lot in school and like even before school. I use a water brush. So it's a paintbrush. It's usually a synthetic tip, so it's nice and easy and flexible. And it's got a reservoir of water in it, and you can squeeze it kind of like a paint pen, and it'll like wet the tip. And so then I just get a solid block of it's like, you know what sumi ink is? Yeah. Like that. It's like that without any of the water in it. So it's just this block of like this little black brick. And it's kind of like the kids' watercolor sets that are like the pans.
Yeah, but like the adult size where it's
pretty
actually
much,
like a big
and
one.
it's just black, and so you're just diluting it. You know, you get a tray and like dilute different grays in there.
Yeah.
So it's still ink, but the process of doing it is a lot more like watercolor. I mean, I think it's a shortcut for me for sure.
You think it is?
Totally, because like building a value that's somewhere between white and black, like that'll always take time.
Yeah.
And being able to say, okay, here's gray, rather than having to simulate gray with like hatching or cross hatching and being careful with my lines.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, I mean, every artist takes shortcuts. I'm not like knocking myself too hard for it, but.
What about incorporating like digital aspects into it? I mean, if you bring in a Photoshop, would you find that cheating?
No, I don't think so. I do that from time to time.
Oh, you do?
Mostly, I guess the way I justify it to myself is that like it's such a digital world.
Yeah.
That you're not doing anyone a disservice by saying like, you know, if you say like mixed media, like digital is totally a medium.
And mixed media can literally be anything.
Right.
And like the more you go to art shows, you're like, what is that? You're like, what did they use?
Yeah, this is like breakfast cereal and gouache on canvas.
I knew this comic book artist, and he would always ink it, and then I didn't know that. I mean, I was younger at the time. I didn't know that he would like send it off, and then the colorist would do all the colors for it.
There's like the pencil guy and the ink guy and the color guy, and
yeah, exactly. But like he was known as the inker, and he would do a really good job inking it, and then of course the colorist would just make it come to life in that way. But I'm assuming that all that color work was done digital.
Probably, especially if you're thinking about like a huge print run like that.
Yeah. And another thing that was surprising was like how big the pages were that he was drawing on, because they'd be scaled down. You know, obviously details look a lot nittier when they're just scaled down like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just things I always notice.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing. I mean, you can look at like stuff like that, like digital and scaling. Like I work with that all the time. I have a printer and scanner in my studio, and I'll like make pretty religious use of that.
Yeah.
Like I've started drawings and gone, oh, it's too big, and like put it on the scanner and make a copy scaled down and like keep going from there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with using tools that are available to you. I guess it gets a little muddy when you think about like selling it, because you wouldn't say like, here's an original piece of art anymore. You know, that gets a little weird.
And I think people like tend to downplay work that's gone digital, especially like some photographers that are really stuck in the darkroom world.
Oh yeah,
You know
they're
what
like,
I mean?
you didn't slave away in the dark room making this like doesn't count.
Yeah, well, have you done darkroom work?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, you know that it's super involved and it is difficult, but like at the end of the day, how you compose that photo is what makes it good.
Right.
You know, not like your chemical techniques. I mean, I guess it does. Because I guess the chemical techniques back then was the Photoshop that we deal with today.
Sure.
You know, so, but then again, being good at Photoshop is a good skill, but then they're like, if it's Photoshop,
Does it cheapen it somehow?
It
like,
does cheapen it.
Yeah.
That's what they think.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, like I waffle back and forth in my opinions on that a little bit. Like, I'm very strict with myself about all of my pieces starting as an actual physical drawing. And then if I do something in Photoshop to them, that's like post-processing, I guess.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And that's, I mean, okay, it's also like when hip-hop started sampling a lot of rock riffs.
Like, you didn't make a song, you just took other songs.
Yeah, it's like, wait, I worked hard on that. You know, but they made something cooler out of it. I mean, it goes back to the great artist steal bullshit.
And it has its own identity and everything that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think there's also a conversation there that kind of goes back to what we were talking about habits and like a drawing education.
Yeah.
Because something I see a lot of, and like, I don't want to piss anybody off, but like I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm going to go draw. And they like get their iPad out.
Oh my God.
Part of me is like, okay, I really understand the utility of that. Cause I had somebody, I've never seen it done. And I had somebody like, I was down at Tourprint working with Austin Phillips.
Yeah.
And somebody was in the studio with their Procreate and they like showed it to me. And I was like, okay, I immediately see why this is appealing. Like I totally get it. And I think if you know how to draw and you're churning stuff out all day, every day, that's an awesome tool. I'm a little bit skeptical of its value as something for someone who hasn't like learned to draw yet.
Yeah.
You know, like if you get that and start drawing on it, like if you can just control Z your mistakes away, you're not going to like learn how to be better. It seems to me.
I think that's probably why a lot of photographers still start off with film cameras so that you can like kind of learn to commit to the shot.
Yeah. It's like understand the full process before you take shortcuts.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
I mean, this also happens with things that aren't art. Like kids today, I think they're starting to go straight into typing before writing.
That's funny. I didn't think that's like totally the same thing, and it didn't even click in my brain until you said that.
It's really similar. Yeah, but
we're just the art version of those people who are like, oh, kids aren't learning cursive anymore. Like they don't know how to write.
Yeah, how dare they bring iPads into the classroom? Yeah. But I guess it's all kind of the same stuff. So you've done pretty well on Instagram for yourself. I mean, I think a lot of people aspire to always have like a good, decent following. I mean, what's some words of advice you give for people who are trying to make use of their talents in the digital world, and especially going into Instagram?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's well timed because this is something that like I really have a lot of ambivalence on in my own brain, because I think it's really important to set a boundary. And what you'll find once you get, I'm nothing, but once you get to people with like 50K, 100K, like running an Instagram is its own job.
Yeah.
Forget drawing, forget having time to market, forget having time to go do events. Like you just have to be online, like doing the engagement. And so I think like the way that I've gone about it, I probably could have grown faster than I did if I played the game a little harder, but it was really important to me to kind of draw a line in the sand. But that said, man, I think that some of the best things you can be doing are like getting out there and interacting with people.
Collabing.
Yeah, collabing. And also just, like if you see something that you think is dope, like it and comment, this is dope. It's pretty much that simple.
But you gotta like mean it.
Cause you do have to mean it. Cause the shit that I always fucking hate, man, is like when people will comment on my art and be like, cool art, come check out my page. And it's like, God, you don't give a shit about my art. Like, don't pretend like I'm anything more than just a stepping stone to you.
Right. Or they just send the most like generic, like good work or something.
Well, and some people, this is something that can always get like a little bit tied up in ego and sound kind of cocky, I guess. But a lot of people, another popular thing is saying like, hey man, you want to do a shout for shout? And it's like, I have 12,000 followers. You have 100. Like, I'm doing you a favor and that's it.
Yeah.
You're not really offering me much of anything.
Right.
But like if I like your art and I stumble upon your art, someone shows me and I'm like, this is dope. Totally. I'll give you a shout out. But
yeah. What do you think about all those like super cheesy things that people do to get followers? Cause there's the shout for shout. There's the people that like add or follow and unfollow.
That's sneaky.
Dude, I hate it.
Yeah, I don't care for
that.
Like
when you see a guy, like a girl, anyone, just like 20 of your photos out of nowhere, it's like, let's see what you're doing.
Like I know
it all happened instantly. You just like click down the list.
Yeah. I don't want to knock like the politics of it entirely because it is.
Let's knock them all. Let's just badmouth let's say names.
Let's call people out. No, man, I think like if you're not using it as a little bit of its own political sphere, if you're not taking it on its own terms, like you're not going to grow very much.
Yeah.
Because a little bit of that is like necessary. And I think you can do it with dignity. And that's something that I've like tried to figure out. Is like, I shout people out. I do shout out Saturdays where every Saturday I pick like my 20-ish favorite things from the week and just blow them up.
You do. And that's cool. I've seen you do that.
It's only shit that I actually like. And like some of it's big accounts, some of it's small accounts, but I'm never like fishing for like, oh, if I shout this guy out, he'll like blow me up. Like, no, it's like, here's what I like. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. That's fine. Maybe you want to shout me back. Maybe you don't. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's just another example of kind of like the boundaries that I'm talking about. Because if you want to just like sit there and play the game, you could do it for 24 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
And, get 100,000 followers, but you'd be like miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you just stick to Instagram. That's not, you don't really branch out other than that. Or do you? And I just
How
don't
do you
know.
mean? Like other social
Other
medias?
socials,
or,
yeah.
Man, I just don't think I have time for anything else.
It's just like what you said, like when you do, if someone, like, it's a whole job to be a social media person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we make some content for clients here, and I tell them, like, I'll make it, I'm not going to post it, because that is a whole nother animal that we don't have time for.
Like you can handle that.
Yeah, that's yours. We'll make it look pretty. You do the rest.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair.
I think so too, man. It's an entirely different skill. Like it really, I call it politics because that's all it is. Yeah. And I mean, my girlfriend, when I wake up in the morning, she's like, oh, you got to do your chores. Cause I'll wake up and spend like 15 minutes with a cup of coffee, like doing like likes and like responding to DMs, like just kind of handling the business. And then I can set the phone down for like a chunk of the day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like you do have to play the game if you want to get anything out of it. And it's like people always talk about, you hear people bitch about like, oh, the algorithm, or like, oh, like Instagram's, Mark Zuckerberg is like counting his money and like laughing evilly. Like
he might be.
Maybe, probably. It doesn't matter.
That's okay. He made it. He made Facebook. Sure. Count your money, man.
Well, I mean, and then the other question is like, is it possible to be an ethical billionaire? And the answer is no. But the thing that like I think often gets glossed over is how cool it is to be a creator in this like internet age. Yeah. Because like there's so many people who are like, honest to God, like I'm a professional artist, not me, talking about other people, saying like, I do this professionally. This pays my rent. This is my living. Like fucking RX Skulls, McMonster, like all these cats like were able to like quit their terrible jobs. Sorry guys. And like to live their dreams, like quite literally, as corny as that sounds. And it's totally because they had an idea, they had access to the internet, and they were able to like find this community that would appreciate what they were doing. Yeah. And like I think about how many, not even that long ago, like people in the 1980s, like if you're like, oh, I really wish I could quit my job and draw. It's like, well, that sucks. Back to the office with you. Like, that just wasn't an option. So like as much as people kind of, I guess, like to complain about it and kind of like vilify it and demonize it, because there's negative aspects to it, sure. And we don't even have the beginning of an idea of how it affects mental health. This is the interesting thing because it's so new. We have no idea what the fuck it's doing to our brains.
We know it's not doing good things.
Yeah, that would be the guess. But
I think I see people myself who get like way too trapped into it, and they just get obsessed with the likes. That's all they want.
You can't get out of it. Yeah,
I've heard that Instagram is beginning to remove the like function in some countries right now.
I saw that. I heard that it was that you can see how much likes your stuff gets, but no one else can see it. Like you see it only for you.
I kind of wish they'd get rid of it altogether. Like I guess it's satisfying for you to see that some work does better.
It's kind of validating, yeah.
Yeah, validating. But I think people get too hung up in it. And it might be best for like the world if we get rid of all of it, right? You know what I mean? Like,
everybody be a little happier.
Everybody, they wouldn't be so on edge. They wouldn't be so like who liked it this time?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be so
Why do you like my picture, dude? Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah. So, aren't they doing that like in Australia right now?
I think they've like tested it. I'm down, man. Bring it on.
I am too. Because I think one of the arguments for that was once you do that, it opens the door for people to make truer content to what they believe in.
Totally.
And they're not just trying to satisfy the masses. Because, let's think about it. That idea, the like culture, that's what brought up like pop music and stuff.
How do you mean? Yeah, explain.
Record sales. Like that was the
sure.
That was the likes in the 90s were the record sales. And
they would metrics.
Yes. They would just try to please the masses. And in reality, it like ruined music. Like right, like all these manufactured bands were just ruining everything.
I know you like Cardi B. I know you were playing Cardi B earlier.
I accidentally played Cardi B.
And you're like, oh, what? Who put on Cardi B? This is crazy. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, man. Like it's not about authenticity. It's about like sellability.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
everyone wants to kind of have like this bite-sized but profound experience, and the quicker you can like package that up and sell it, the quicker you're gonna blow up. Is that way too cynical?
No, but that's exactly it. It's like that is it. I mean, you're trying to, in a way, just do it for the sales, but that's not very artisty, true artisty if you're just doing it for the sales. And like, I think you do a good job of not doing that. Like you have a following, but you're not just making generic shit to please the masses.
Sure. You know why that is though?
Why?
Because I have day jobs.
Hey.
It's because it's not my revenue stream entirely. Yeah. Like I do okay money with commissions and stuff like that, but it's not like what pays my rent.
Right.
And so if it were, I cannot honestly say like I wouldn't ever, like hustle and just do stuff that I know people would sell, like, and turn around for a quick buck. Like, I think that's kind of the game.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I guess, cost of doing business if you want to be able to say at the end of the day, like, I'm a professional artist. This is all I do for money.
You also have to be doing it for a while. I mean, like, you're close with RX.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for what, 10 years?
That project, yeah, I think I don't actually know the dates, like when he started on Instagram, but it's been like pretty concurrent is my understanding of it.
Yeah, so 10 years, and what people say, like a 10,000 hours
to like master something. Yeah.
Which I don't know how many hours are in a year.
Enough.
But it could be it could be about that. What are you doing next? Like, you have this, you're introducing the ink washes. Like, what's next on your list of SK?
That's a good question, man. I've got a couple of decent like commissions coming through that are kind of more commercial work than I'm used to. Mm-hmm. I probably can't like name drop anything yet.
Right.
But I'm really excited to get them down. It's like people who reached out to me, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Everybody gets that imposter syndrome of like, I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. And so to have like a big brand's like creative director be like, hey man, you want to do some art for us? That's pretty sweet. But really, man, just kind of keeping my head down. I think I have an empty calendar for the first time in a handful of months, and I'm just going to like spend a bunch of time in the studio, work on myself, like draw what I want to draw. And it's been a while since I've been able to do that. So I'm really excited.
What does the day in your life look like as artist?
That's interesting. Cause so I work in print.
Yeah. But like, if you weren't doing that, like you wake up, you do your Instagram, you do your chores.
Do the chores. Yeah.
And then like, where does it go from there?
I'm big on morning routine. I always like a big breakfast and a lot of coffee.
Uh-huh.
And then, man, if it's a studio day, like that's just where I spend the day. And it's been set up that like I could watch a movie, throw on a movie, and like, oh, I need to take a break, take a walk. Like that's fine too. But I don't really believe in like, I don't know, man. You hear people talk a lot about, oh, if you don't want to do it, if you don't want to create something today, like it's okay. Just don't do it. And it's like,
I hate that.
I don't think you get better at doing something by not doing it.
I totally agree. Right. And a lot of people have like that 2-day rule. Like if you take 2 days off from something, then you're just not going to build that habit to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that.
I think that like people talk about inspiration a lot. Like I'm like, oh, like, it's a studio day. I'm going to like sit down and like wait till I get inspired and then go draw. And like, I think inspiration is kind of fickle. And this is like totally a masochistic opinion, but I think that much more so than being inspired, like if you could cultivate discipline, and like saying like, fuck it, I don't have anything to draw. I can't think of anything I want to draw right now, but I'm going to sit down and draw anyway, and just like shit something out. And it totally might be bad. Those aren't all winners.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing it, it's like that you just spin the wheel and you're digging yourself deeper into the mud. Mm-hmm. Rather than doing it. And okay, maybe it's not perfect, but at least I'm doing it and I'm still utilizing that skill. I don't know. I think that's like how to do it, man. It's just like learn how to bust through it when you don't want to do it.
I think that makes sense. I mean, what would you say to people so what you talk about is like the creator's block, not a writer's block, creator's block, or artist block. I mean, like, so your view of it is to just force it out.
Kind of.
You don't like go walk your dog, or I know some people, they try to like put themselves in situations that they wouldn't normally find themselves in. And that might be like for a bigger picture block, not necessarily like a momentary block. And how do you feel about that?
Like, what's my advice? Like how to do that? Or?
Like if you're in like a big picture block where you're about to enter like a really big project and you're really stuck on what to actually do for it.
Right.
I mean, like what would you do that has helped you with that?
That's interesting, man. I don't know that I'm like the shining example. Like I don't think I have like this paragon of advice to give about that because I just get really, really mad until I break it. Like I don't really handle it well. Because to me, like it's so, I think it's just really innately tied to like, probably honestly my self-worth. Like at the core of it is like, if I'm not creating, I don't know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I have like a week, 2 weeks where it's like, I don't have anything to draw, I can't draw. Like, and I'll start something and go, shit. And start something and go, shit too. Like that's rough mentally and emotionally. And I think that that's probably something I could stand to work on a little bit, but I also don't necessarily see it as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that turns into passion. Like that's something that I think is totally underrated, like taking a negative emotion and turning it into passion and momentum.
Yeah. Damn. That's good. That's good. I mean, everyone has like a different answer to that. Like I bet Ace Troy would like have a couple beers. Like
sure.
Every time I see Ace Troy, like he's drinking. You know? And then like a lot of people might just, I don't know, they might just go out and spray or some shit.
Sure.
Like it's just like how they release. And I mean, I think that's good to like go on to that topic of just mental health in general. I think it's something that we like to touch on because some people, they just take themselves into a dark place all the time.
Yeah. You can't live there, but
some people do.
You should get comfortable with visiting, in my opinion.
That's a good way to put it. I think it's like you got to figure out how to be okay with discomfort.
Yeah.
The world is not like a playground. It's not like a McDonald's like pool pit.
Sure.
Like there's going to be some snakes in there every now and then.
And more than the world, like more than it being something external that's like hostile to you, I think it's about how people treat themselves, because self-care is a big thing. Like, especially, I feel like all of a sudden it's a fad. Like everybody's talking about like self-care, and
they are, but like at the same time, all this like really messed up shit has been on the rise as well.
True.
You know, like I feel like more people are committing suicide who were like, why? Like, you know, like Bourdain, for example, like how did that happen?
Yeah, like you had the dopest life ever.
Like Robin Williams. Robin Williams was another one. You know, all these people are like, oh, why are you committing suicide? And then they were like, oh, there's something else going on here that is not only affecting them, but like we're feeling the same feelings that they're feeling. And we're like, what is actually going on?
Well, yeah, like it doesn't go away just because they're like rich and successful.
Yeah.
I think that you might, oh man, that's a big question, big conversation.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like, I'm not afraid to get real. I don't know what like the tone that you want us to go for here.
We go dark sometimes.
Okay, cool. I can go dark. I'm an open book.
We're all black, so
yeah. I mean, it's not a phase, Mom. This is who I am. I mean, so that's something that's pretty personal to me in my heart because my dad killed himself when I was a teenager, and I always thought that, like, it's a result of. I mean, I can't say definitively. I'm not a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought that a lot of that like dissonance comes from like being unable to reconcile who you are with who society thinks you are.
Yeah.
Or who you'd want to be or anything like that. And so I think that my like path to good mental health comes from a lot of bad mental health. And so you can sit there all day and say, this kind of like to bring it all the way back. Like, I'm having a hard time drawing today, but that's okay. I'm still an artist. Like I'm just going to like make a cup of tea and like watch a movie. I don't think that is the work that I would want to be doing. And I don't think that it's fair to say like, this is how someone should or should not do it. Like I'm not being prescriptive. I'm not telling anybody else how to do it. Mm-hmm. But for me, like if I'm having trouble with my feelings of my, validness as an artist or as a creator, the answer to that is create, not don't create.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that they do get down, they just like get on their phone or something and they'll just watch stuff.
Well, then that's one of the big dark sides of that social media. Like that damn social media all the kids these days have. Is that the more that you flounder, you always have to compare to like what appears to be someone doing like just killing it. You know, you always see the people just fucking nailing it, and you're like, how do you have all these great ideas, this constant energy, this momentum, but it's not real. That's the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that those people also have bad days, and those people have plenty of times they can't figure something out or can't draw something, and they're hard on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, veneered.
People only publicize the best side of them.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Like, on the other hand, like, it can be kind of obnoxious when people are like too, I don't know, forthcoming about. It's like kind of like handle yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But just like handle yourself and know yourself and know what you need and know how to take care of those needs.
Yeah.
And if what you need is to take a break from drawing when you can't draw, that's cool. But I know that makes me feel worse.
Mm-hmm. I think we're the same in that way. Like
Yeah.
if I have to figure it out before I just like dilly dally around.
It has to get busted through.
Yeah. That's
And so, I mean, like, and I'm not just like, up in my studio until 3 a.m, like burning the midnight oil, smashing my head against a wall and like screaming.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll tell myself like, okay, you can leave the studio and go like sit on the couch after you pencil one thing. Doesn't have to be good. You don't have to love it. Doesn't have to be something you'll finish, but finish the pencils for one thing.
Dude, those are like little incremental achievements.
Yep.
That make everything feel a little bit better.
And that's what that's when people are talking about momentum, they're talking about discipline.
And that's the same idea. I think it's the same idea of like that army general that would always push you have to make your bed, every morning.
Like make the habit.
Yeah. And then like even if you have a shitty day, you come back to a bed that's made and like it makes things a little bit better because you did that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and I think especially when you talk about like entering sort of the professional world as a creator, like I don't understand how people think that they're going to like really cut it if they only create when they feel like it or they feel like totally ready to.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of have to be able to make yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who disagree with like everything I just said. So
Dude, we say a lot of stuff on here that people
disclaimers abound.
Like what advice would you give to someone who hasn't quite found their style, who doesn't know where they're going with their work, but like has a creative drive?
There's nothing to it but time, I think. And then I guess the other underrated aspect of it is like copy the shit out of stuff
until you figure out. Yeah. That's how you try things.
Well, people I think spin their wheels a lot, like looking for originality. Like they want that new killer thing that nobody's done before.
That's so true.
It's so elusive. And the weird, like self-defeating fact of the matter remains that if you find that thing, sometimes it seems really gimmicky. Because it's like, okay, this is original, but it's not anything else.
Especially if it's only aligning to like a current trend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that a lot.
So the way that I draw now, like, is informed by a lot of like looking at contemporary artists and like artists that have been dead for hundreds of years, and saying like, okay, how would they tackle this? How would they draw this? Like, how would they draw skull? Why do I like that? What do I like about that? And then tweak it, make it yours.
Yeah.
There's like, oh, I don't really like how they do this part of the skull or this part of anything. Like, I'm gonna do that differently. But I really like how this particular artist uses lines. So like, how would he line that? If and then you have to synthesize it. And then what you're synthesizing is not an imitation of another artist's style, but your own style.
Yeah.
Like you kind of arrive at it by accident.
Another question. What would you say is one of your most unpopular thoughts?
Oh, Jesus, fuck. Local Portland artists Instagram following reduced by half. That's a man.
It's one of those questions.
I would say in this age of social media, we're talking like kind of specifically to art, and
I'd say social or just society or
I think that if Instagram went down tomorrow, a lot of people wouldn't do art anymore. And
I agree with that.
It bums me out. I think people care about that game. They care about that like crawling to the top. They care about their followers and their likes more than they care about what they're doing.
Well, also because you can build an Instagram posting other people's art.
Totally. People do that shit all the time.
They do it all the time.
Sometimes they credit the people's art, sometimes they don't.
But even when they do credit it, it's like, I don't know.
I think that there's, you never understand people's intentions plainly. You can always guess, but there's a lot of examples of people doing that just to be really, really cool. Like, Lifeform.
No.
He don't think he really does it anymore, but he did like the Lifeform Drawing Club, because he was like a 250K account, and it was just like, here's the word of the week, and like you draw it and hashtag it, and people would like grab it, and he'd like find the stuff that he liked, and be like, cool. And just like repost it.
I feel like that's more like interacting with your audience,
right? It's not just like, here's a shout, like comment and subscribe, like here's this art that I didn't do. Yeah, like there's totally a way to do it. I mean, I think that the platform like has such an innate ability to like be used for good. Like, you can totally reach down and pick people up. And when people do that, it's really, really tight. When people like reach up and drag themselves up, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah, it's also like when I think we had a girl on here one time, and a magazine is using her photos, Celeste, I believe it was Celeste, and they were like publishing her photos in the magazine, but they didn't really want to pay her. They just kept saying the exposure thing, like, oh, it's great exposure.
Trash,
like,
dude.
And I think initially she was like, okay, and then she was like, no,
like, wait a minute, no, yeah,
because it was like 10 pages of her photos, like full page spreads, like.
That's thousands of dollars.
Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, come on, like pay the people that are contributing to your magazine. That's not cool just to walk all over them.
Well, what I think is really, really interesting, like I think I read this somewhere and it stuck with me because I think it's really accurate. Like people talk about, well, it's great exposure for you, as though they're doing you a favor. Like that's kind of the meme, that everybody's like, I'll work for exposure. I'll go buy my groceries with exposure bucks. Like, but at the end of the day, man, like people underestimate like the power that creatives have, I think, because when you're saying like, if you're some shitty brand saying like, oh, let's go find an artist and tell them they'll do it for the exposure. If that artist is creating a component of your visual branding, they're doing exposure for you. Like you're not doing them any fucking favors.
That's true.
And I think people need to like reorient how they understand that, because you're not doing the artist favors by using their art. They're doing you a favor.
Yeah. I like it.
I don't know. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah.
The relationship, the direction of the relationship is so skewed and wrong.
Yeah. Anyways, well, is there anything you have coming up? We've been going for like 45 minutes.
Oh.
Time flies in these things.
Yeah.
Or anything else you want to like put out there that I missed that is important to you, or like important to your scene, or something that bugs you? I like it when it bugs
beef.
people.
I don't know, man. I think if we had to end it on a message, I would say you're all gonna die, and you're all gonna die, and that means that what you do today, what you do tomorrow, what you do the day after that, how kind you are to people, what you create and put out into the world is really important. That's very true. Shoulder that responsibility, be nice when you can, and get comfortable.
And to add on that, like people underestimate kind gestures these days.
It's true.
So more of that shit.
There's nothing you can do that's more important than being nice, I think.
I like that. Anyways, where can people find you?
It's SK, what am I now? SK Arts, ESQUE.ARTS on Instagram.
Yeah.
I've had a website in the works for forever. It hasn't happened, but we'll get there eventually.
Well, man, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me, man.
I'm sure you'll be back on again.
Cool.
Anyways, everyone else, listeners, have a good one.